Most people think that language learning requires a certain skill, but it doesn't. What you actually need is a step-by-step system that adds language learning into your existing lifestyle without needing to change your current routine. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. I'm James, I'm native in English and I can speak Spanish and Italian. I have 12 years of language learning experience. Firstly, do things that help you learn your target language without doing much thinking. So think about things like washing up, having a shower, making dinner, commuting to work. You might just be daydreaming and it doesn't require you to have active attention on the thing you're doing. Then what you do is while you're doing one of these things, for example, cleaning up or commuting, you expose yourself to your target language while you're doing that. So it might be a podcast or YouTube video, but 100% in your target language. Then as you're doing that, your brain is absorbing the language and learning it. And it doesn't require effort because that's how babies learn essentially. They listen to the world around them and that's what you're doing. You might be walking to work or commuting or doing the washing up and you hear a word again and again in a certain context with other words. You hear the patterns and your brain likes to register patterns because it wants to understand what's happening around it. And essentially that's how the brain works to your advantage to learn a different language. But more importantly, doing language learning activities in your existing lifestyle when you're doing these things means that you don't have to change it, or you don't have to sit down or plan study time because you can do it as part of doing something else. So if you have half an hour every day commuting to work, to and from, that adds up if you're listening to Spanish or your target language while you're doing it. And it works for any language because if you're exposing yourself more and more to a certain language, you'll start to recognize it more over time. By the way, just to let you know, I have a 30-day email course that's free that helps you learn your target language in less time with less effort. And it's a series of emails where I send you one email that takes less than a minute to read every day for the next 30 days. And every email has actionable, practical tips that you can use based on my 12 years experience learning languages. So if you're interested, there's a link below in the description. Secondly, as long as you keep going and don't quit, you will get to your language learning goal. Now, it might take years for some people, but essentially you might think to yourself that you're not good at language learning. That is not true. It doesn't require a certain skill. Ultimately, all it takes is exposure over a long period of time. The more exposure you give to your brain, the less time it will take. But think of it like this, you cannot avoid but to learn the language if you expose yourself to it every single day indefinitely. You will eventually arrive at a point where you can speak and understand the language. That's how your brain works. So the bigger question is, how do you not quit and why do so many people quit? What's the underlying reason? So firstly, if you build a language learning system into your existing routine, you build a series of habits and every habit is related to a trigger and a reward. And that might mean that every time you start something, maybe you get into the car ready to commute, or you wait at a bus stop with your earphones in and you start the podcast. Now that is a trigger. It means whenever you start doing something, you do something else. And if you can add a language learning activity into this, for example, listen to a Spanish podcast or any podcast in your target language while doing this, then every time you do it, you'll automatically get out your earphones and listen to that podcast. You'll press play. And that's how it works. And normally for a new habit to stick, it takes just over a month. So after this point, the chance of you losing that habit dramatically decreases. So you'll be consistent. Because ultimately, it's part of your life and it's automatic. And one other point about this to stop quitting is do things that you find naturally interesting. So if you like golfing or cooking, then listen to content around that. Because then if you're on your bus commuting to work or something and you're listening to your target language, you want to be interested in it to some extent, even if you don't understand it all. For example, if you're listening to a Spanish podcast about cooking, you're listening to the words and the food items, many of which will also be the same in English. You'll be like, oh, that's quite similar. And your brain will notice patterns, even if you're daydreaming, looking out the window of the bus on the way to work or whatever. And many of the words will be repeated, so you'll naturally learn it over time. Anyway, for some of you, that can be a lot to take in. So I have created a list of resources in the description below, some of which are paid and some are free, but feel free to have a look at one that interests you. And finally, in terms of progress and how much you influence your progress in terms of language learning, there's a few influences behind this. The main one is time. So obviously, the more free time you have available, or the more things in your life you can add language learning into, then the quicker you'll reach your goal. Another thing you can do though to condense the amount of time it takes you to learn a language is learn one topic at a time. So one scenario, it might be going food shopping, or it might be asking for directions, or it might be introducing yourself to new people. So think about why you want to learn language and what interests you in terms of the scenarios or how you'd like to use it. And that means that you're basically condensing the amount of language that you're learning at once into a very small percentage of the whole language. And the benefits of that is you can learn it quicker. You can see evidence you can actually speak it quicker because you're just focusing on one scenario. Maybe you're in a restaurant or something. That's an example. And if you get good at that scenario, perfect, move on to another one. Rather than trying to learn the whole language at once and getting stuck on the grammar or things that don't interest you, you'll get bored, you'll lose motivation, and you'll quit. That might have happened to you many times before, and that might have been the reason why. Anyway, as I mentioned before, there's a few links to resources in the description below. YouTube is really good at recommending content, so right here above my finger will be a recommended video for you to help you reach your language goals in less time. So see you later and have fun watching this one.